G'day, Bomber fans. Well, that was a surprise. We'll call it a surprise because the Bombers were expected to win this game. The Saints were actually $3 to win it before the match had started. They were the underdogs, but you wouldn't guess that looking at the scoreboard. St Kilda absolutely smashed the Bombers at Windy Hill. It was a proper good old-fashioned belting. It was a really disappointing performance, one that really puts the season back in jeopardy a bit after a fast start. So let's chat about it. Leave your votes in the comments below. Quarter by quarter recap. You could see the vibes weren't quite there early. The Saints got two pretty quick goals. They were cleaning up ground balls and getting serious territory their way. Richards and Jesse Wardlaw made it a 12-point game before Hannah Priest put the Saints in third through, and from there it was danger signs. The Dons just weren't getting anything going. The only silver lining was a rather contentious siren mark to Sophie Alexander. She would convert from close range, bringing the margin back to 14 points at quarter time. The second quarter, I was expecting a turnaround, but an act of undiscipline early gave the Saints more breathing room, and an otherwise uneventful quarter would end the way the first did, except this time it was the Saints getting the goal in the dying seconds. 26 points down at halftime for the Bombers. It was not looking good at all. I actually thought plenty of the game in the first half was fairly even despite the scoreline, and I'm going to talk about that a bit later, but the second half, it was just flat footy. You know, nothing was going our way. The Saints would keep scoring. Wardlaw owned the quarter, kicking the only 2 goals of it, and at three-quarter time, it was 45-6. Jesse Wardlaw had 3 times as many goals as the Bombers did. It was a bad game. The final term, it was just about waiting for the siren to end, and luckily the Saints weren't converting as well as they would have liked. They kept the margin down a bit on what it could have been. We scuffed a few as well, but the Saints, they got the win. There was more pain with Amber Clark, former Essendon player, kicking a goal against her old side. But yeah, it was 60-8 by the time the final siren sounded. Really bad loss. The season is now looking in a bit of trouble, so let's chat about it. Yeah, I mean, this game is a bit tricky to look at and really analyze all in one. If you look plainly at the stats, you would think it played out pretty differently to the way it actually did. I feel like the first half felt not even, but if you looked at the stats and looked at the way the game was playing out, it was really tough to see just why St Kilda was so much more dominant, because the territory wasn't a standout. I think the Saints had 5 more inside 50s at halftime, something like that. The midfield battle was kind of back and forth in an arm wrestle. For me, the most noticeable reason why we weren't on top early was just a lack of composure from us and serious composure from the Saints. And that's going to be, it's going to be really down to, you could say pressure, or you could say lack of composure. I don't know which one it really was. I think the Saints are one of the best tackling teams in the competition. They're great. They were always going to be hot, but it felt like we didn't really match their heat, which allowed them a bit more time on the footy than us. So, you know, disposal numbers, inside 50s, clearances, they're all pretty even at halftime, but the Saints just, they had that extra step or two that we didn't, which allowed them to, you know, be a bit more precise with their kicking. And then on top of that, because, you know, that's mostly a game with footy in hand, I felt like there was a bit of a breakdown in defence. Wardlaw was absolutely cooking us, and we had just nothing going forward at all. Like, the only goal we kicked for the entire game, you could argue it shouldn't have been allowed. I haven't gone back to actually watch it, but at the time I thought that mark that Alexander took was a second after the, or half a second after the siren. And look, when you've got 2 scoreless quarters, 3 quarters without a goal being kicked, you're clearly doing something wrong. And I thought the first half was glaring in how much worse we looked despite having a lot of the game go our way. It was really interesting. Whereas the first half was really, you could say, based on performance and not effort. I thought that second half, after halftime, that was just a team who had given up a bit. You know, you saw jogging, you saw weak tackle efforts. It was a big margin to overcome at halftime, and it would have taken an almighty effort. I don't think we would have, even at our best. But the Saints, they came out really early, really hot in the third, and that just must have sunk heads a bit, because, you know, from there, St Kilda just looked too easy for them. We're probably lucky they didn't really get going late, because that margin could have and maybe should have been a lot worse than it was. So, whereas in the first half, a lot of the stat lines were close to, or even, by the end of the game, it was pretty obvious who the better team was. They had 17 more inside 50s, 40 more disposals, 36 more uncontested possessions. They doubled our contested marks. They had almost 20 more tackles despite having more of the footy in their hands. It was a pretty ordinary finish to an ordinary start to the game. The way I see it, I thought this game played out pretty easily in two halves. The first, we were just being outplayed. I thought we were being outplayed despite giving a bit of effort in there. The second half, we were being outworked. So yeah, Natalie would not be happy with this at all. We lost this game in quite a few different ways. Unfortunately, on top of that, there are some injuries to take out of the game as well. So Jess Verbruge went down with an ankle injury in the first quarter. She is now in a moon boot, so that doesn't look very good at all for young Jess. Hopefully all is well there. Georgia G, that what happened in the first quarter as well. So we were down 2 players in the first quarter. She went in for a ground ball and copped, I think, a knee to the head. I think it's a neck injury. I don't think it's concussion, so hopefully she's good to go next week for an important game. But yeah, the way it's going now, we do still have a few on the sidelines. I get that we've got a few injuries against us as a club, but you know, that performance wasn't really anything you can narrow down to injuries. We saw the AFL Bombers play some good games with injuries and some bad games with injuries, but the AFL side has some... Well, yes, there are some important players out, but only 5 or 6. Like, it's not like we're scrambling for numbers. That was just a really horrible team performance. We were on the back foot from the get-go. We were not up to standard whilst giving effort in the first half, and then in the second half, it felt like there was no effort. Yeah, really, this was a game we probably should have won, but we were pretty heavy favourites from the bookies going in. And I know that doesn't mean a lot, but the vibe before the game, for me at least, was that we should be taking 4 points from this to keep our season going before some tough matchups around the corner. And now we are 2 losses in a row heading into games against Fremantle in Perth, North Melbourne and Melbourne. And with our percentage taking a big hit from this game, there are no guarantees that we're in the 8 by the end of the year now. So yeah, after we started 3-0, we had some really good chances to keep that run of form going, and we really blew a good chance to do that against the Saints here. And not just that, we embarrassed ourselves a bit in the process. So yeah, really bad loss. It's hard to understand just why they were so much better than us out there. You know, they're a team that had won one game prior to this. So yeah, not good. I think we're still in the 8, I think, by the end of the weekend. We've got a winnable game next week against Freo as well. But this was, I think, a genuine 50-50, if not 60-40 our way that we should have won, but we lost really badly. And if that's what it's like against St Kilda, how bad is it going to be when we take on North Melbourne, who are miles clear of us? So yeah, not good. Let's get on to the votes. Votes tally after last week's game. So Georgia Nanscorn got a few more votes. She's now clear on 17. She is playing insane footy right now. So is Prasparkas on 12. Those two are really driving the teams forward. You've got Gayla and Toogood on 5 each. You've got a logjam there with G on 3 and everyone else below her on doubles or singles. That is the votes tally after our game against Geelong last week. Now on to the votes from this week's game. And the votes for St Kilda, they're tough to pick them really after a performance like that. I've gone 1 vote to Nanscorn, who continues her good work. She was, again, really hard at it all game, providing heaps of tackling pressure, getting to work on ground level. She struggled to get to her usual heights, I'd say, but was amongst our best still. Steph Kane, 2 votes. I thought she really cracked in. I didn't like that uncharacteristic brain fade to give away the 50 in the second quarter. That was bad, but aside from that, like Nanscorn, I thought she was hard at it and got her hands on the footy a lot on the outside too. 3 votes, though, to Steph Wales. I thought she was the only thing really giving us a bit of an upper hand at times. I thought she was really winning her one-on-one quite a bit, and it's good to have her back in the team. Like, once we get some other numbers back and start playing actual good footy, we're probably going to see her have more of an impact. I think she is a great player, so 3 votes to Wales. The role player, Maggie McLaughlin. I thought she did some good things out on the wing. She used her tank a lot, got her boot to the ball a lot. She was one of our better players, and I thought she was one of the players out there playing to her role. So yeah, leave your votes in the comments below with the role player attached. But yeah, bad loss, really bad loss. We move on because next week there is an opportunity for a response. The Bombers have some really tough games coming up, but the next week against Freo, this becomes a huge must win. If we go 3-3 before games against North, the Demons, Brisbane, Hawthorn and Sydney to round out the year, finals is definitely not a guarantee after that 3-0 start. We've got quite a few games left that we will probably lose, so we really have to bank on this one against Freo and make it 4-2. And at the time of recording, they are second last, just the 1 win. Their only win was in round 1, and since then they have lost some big games. They actually lost by triple figures against the Kangaroos. They play the Eagles probably by the time this video is out, to be honest, and they're expected to get close or win that one. But next week, Saturday afternoon up in Perth, we got to go out and win that game. If we are 4-2, still in the 8, I'm feeling okay about things, but being 3-3, I think that would put us in a really bad position with some games coming up against tough teams. But yeah, that is that. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Not a great Sunday afternoon. Not a great week for Essendon. It's been a pretty ordinary week for the Bombers. Hopefully next week's a little bit better. Cheers for watching. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go Bombers.